Caire Beauty, and my co-founder Celeste and I are delighted to invite you and to meet you here along with Let's Talk Menopause. This is our second annual Marvelous Menopause event, and we're so excited to have a wonderful host, Wonder King, to bring us into this beautiful, awesome space. We can actually see the sunset tonight, which is truly wonderful. So Tamsin, Adele, and I are here to greet you and welcome you, and we hope that you have an amazing, amazing, amazing time.
How's everyone doing? It's so exciting to see all these familiar faces and new ones. How are you tonight? Well, I'm super excited. There's two panels that you're going to hear from, and I get thrilled at events like this, not only because of the information we're going to hear tonight, but also the fact that all of us are going to walk away knowing that, and then sharing that information, and letting other people know that this is a time you can thrive, and really, really thrive during this time. And to see all of you here, and thank you for welcoming me. I was a last minute addition. I didn't know if I was going to be able to make it tonight, and then I said, I'm doing it, it doesn't matter. So thank you. The two panels, the first one talking about today's state of menopause. Celeste is going to be moderating that, and then it's going to be Stacy Lundy and Samantha Skey from She Media. And then the next discussion is menopause research funding and congressional action underway. And that is such a big topic right now, and something we're going to definitely hear more about. And Donna is going to be moderating that one along with Dr. Sharon Malone, Dr. Somi Javed, Dr. Kelly Casperson, who I finally got to see after a year, and Dr. Judith Joseph. So anyway, thank you for coming tonight, and I can't wait to catch up with you afterwards and see what you think.
Hello everybody, thank you so much for coming out tonight. It's a glorious evening, and thank God Ophelia has gone away. I'm very delighted to have the second annual Marvelous Mrs. Menopause, partially because we wanted to think about the fact that everybody's saying, oh, menopause is having a moment. It's in the press, it's everywhere, but is it really? And when you think about culture and what culture is, it's this collection of the way we think, right? And all the laws and the beliefs and the rituals and everything that goes along with culture. It's very complicated. There's a million and one definitions, and I think that the second panel is going to address a lot. But we're going to talk about just what's going on with menopause today. And I'm very proud to have both Samantha Skey and Stacy London. Stacy has arrived just back from an incredible, I don't know what to call it. She's going to tell you all about it. Midlife Meadow Immersion Experience from Canyon Ranch. How cool is that, right? And Samantha is with She Media. She is a forerunner in women's media, specializing in it and thinking about how media intersects with how we actually believe things and learn about things and understand things. And she has something to tell us a little later that I think you're going to find quite illuminating. But first we're going to start with Stacy, and this is up to you. Share whatever you like.
Hi, my name is Stacy. I'm a recovering, I'm a recovering menopause person. Hello, it's wonderful to see all of you. I'm so happy. It feels like it's been a year, and in that time, oh my goodness, this event has grown so much. So congratulations to you, Celeste and Lori, and welcome. And I'm so happy to be up here. And I did just get back from Tucson, Arizona, where it is even hotter than it is here. And I learned quite a bit. I'm going to summarize for you. The idea was to have a menopause midlife immersion. We had experts such as Dr. Javed, who is here today, Dr. Jen Gunter, Dr. Joelle Ballard, all talking about obviously different aspects of the menopause experience. But what was so fascinating was that we had 22 guests who were specific to this immersion. And my huge hope for them was that they would get baseline testing, and it's the reason that I chose Canyon. You could get a glucose monitor, you could get an EKG, you could get a DEXA scan, real sort of baseline information that was not about your hormones, but that could be interpreted in a way that would give you real management tools when you go back to your life, not your week at a spa. So this whole idea of, massage, have a facial, blah, 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 is great. But what I found to be really helpful was getting a DEXA scan, recognizing that I have osteopenia, met with an exercise physiologist who said to me, you are not exercising correctly for your age, for being postmenopausal, for having arthritis, gave me a completely different set of exercises and stretches to do, sent it to my trainer. I gained more muscle in the last 5 months than I have in 2 years. Now, that's real life information that I wanted for these, for these guests. What the big takeaway for me was I brought 32 brands that were somehow related to menopause as gifts. Thank you all so much for all of the companies that participated in that. I can talk a little bit about that later. There were 32 brands in their room when they got there. Products that were for vaginal health, for skin health, for sexual health, all sorts of things. And I was shocked to find out how little was known about those brands. And actually how little people knew about the offerings that were available to them, both over the counter and naturopathically, and really didn't understand hormone therapy at all. So they thought it was sort of the nuclear option and that was it. And they had no understanding of really any of the kind of physiological mechanisms that were going on during this particular stage. And the amount of questions that our doctors received was astronomical. So for me, the biggest part was that in this room, I feel like we are an echo chamber. We've been talking about menopause for more than a minute here, right? We're going on a few years. And while we're gathering steam, it's important to remember that is not what is happening in America and Canada, by the way. There were a lot of Canadians there. People are still not informed. They don't understand when they're going into perimenopause. They don't understand that things are related in perimenopause. And they certainly don't know how this opens the door to a bigger conversation about longevity post-menopause and how you're going to age well, in terms of cardiovascular health, cognitive health, bone health. So there's still a ton of work to be done.
Thank you. Very, very true. There's a guest in the room tonight. We went to the Samantha Bee event at BAM last Saturday night, and it's all about sex, the joy of sex education per Samantha Bee. And if you'll recall from her show, she's your favorite woman. And I have to give her a lot of credit. She spent more than half the evening talking about menopause, and she had it fact-checked, and while I didn't agree with all the facts personally, it was pretty on the money, and she really had a lot to say, but it was very interesting. Here we are in New York City, arguably a pretty well-educated, open-minded, a community of talkers, right? We're not sitting on a farm, not talking to each other. And yet everybody could see people squirming. It was an audience of about 95% women, and people were kind of like, do I look at my friend I came with or not? Do I laugh at this or not? It was really kind of interesting. The good news is that she's on tour all over the country doing this, and she's talking about this. And I love the fact that she's bringing this into the open. But it made me very sad on a personal level that everybody was clearly little for this. And it made me think, so what causes that nervousness, that kind of looking down and around and not at each other and talking at each other? And it has to do, it comes back to what I said a few minutes ago, it has to do with culture. And a huge, huge factor that goes into culture is the media that we consume, whether it's TV, whether it's print, whether it's the internet, it's all of the above. And yet we are given culture with our hands tied behind our backs. You may know, for example, that words like uterus are not allowed in advertising. But did you know that everything associated with your body, and I'm going to let Samantha get into it, she's going to tell you the real truth. And I thank you in advance.
That's the real truth. That's terrifying. So something that we spoke about when we were prepping is an area that I've been slightly obsessed with at She Media. We run various websites and brands, and way back when we bought a brand called Hello Flow, I saw that we had a lot of trouble building traffic to the actual site. And over time, we learned that we were deprioritized by the Google algorithm, which simply means that we're using words because we're talking about women's biology, women's sexual health, various elements of the body, the mind, and the soul, none of which were porny or, I mean, maybe, but none of which would be considered for a block list based on most rational judgment in media, but many of which were considered unsafe. So when you hear brand unsafe, and you look at what advertisers use when they're advertising on the internet, you'll see vagina, you'll see uterus, you'll see the Ukraine, by the way. It's not just, we're not the only ones getting defunded right within the space of journalism. But clitoris is definitely not friendly. Labia, vulva, ovary can go either way depending on what you're selling. 50-50. Yeah, like there's some pharma that wants that. But anyway, it was interesting as I've watched over the past few years and started looking at block lists, which is not really something we're supposed to do, because those are our clients. But sorry if you're here. But when you look at them, you really do start to see Black Lives Matter. Those 3 words, when put together, were blocked from by many advertisers, because that would be unsafe content, which of course I say with a lot of sadness and bitterness. That's not the content that an advertiser wants to fund or run next to. They want to run next to often kitties and, hot bodies and, food that's being made in a very nutritious and mainstream way. So now that you don't have to buy advertising within the frame of a television ad or a print, say New Yorker, where you get your broccoli and, your ice cream as well. Now the way that 80% of all advertising dollars are spent enables you to target not only the audience member, but also the context in which she is consuming content, and to block out any words, images, etc. that are considered unsafe, which is essentially defunding journalism in a lot of ways, and I think allows the algorithm to be sort of the editor-in-chief and arbiter of what we get to read about. So there are plenty of reasons no one wants to chill with women over my age, or in my age group, and that has to do with the whole patriarchy and all that shit, which is also blocked as a word. So, but I think when you look at the actual tactical ways that we can eliminate content that is vital, that Stacy's talking about, that's one of the very, very accessible ways to do that.
Sorry, just one thing to add, because you did start Flow Hell, which I'm very proud to be an advisor of, and it is such an incredible channel in terms of information. Even the amount of information that you've been putting out about menopause just this past week has really been remarkable. And again, I think that we are going to have to fight to get information the way that we want to consume it. We are really going to have to fight against blocked words. We are going to have to fight, generally speaking, around women's health and physiology in order to get the information that we need. And what that means is you sort of need to know what you don't know yet, which means being your own advocate, right? And learning things that you can go out into the world and then share with other people, and make sure that these are the things that we're getting journalists to write about and talk about. We all have, journalism friends in this room. There are magazines represented here. This is the type of thing that is truly almost a national crisis about women's health, about the fact that after pregnancy and perhaps postpartum, we're discussing fertility, there is zero reliable information. You just keep getting a lot of conflict and confusing rhetoric about what's happening, but what are the actual steps that you personally need to take in order to make sure that the information that you're getting feels solid to you and feels right to you?
It is verified, and all of the reasons that we're so appreciative of your work, and probably Stacy more than like anyone I know, in bringing your knowledge of pop culture and how to communicate, how to do so emphatically and with both science and story. Because if you search right now menopause, which by the way, every time you search menopause online, you're helping us with the algorithm.
Helping the cause.
Yeah.
Perimenopause and menopause. Search every day.
Search it, because that pushes up demand, and then the more demand there is for those words, the more people will write about them. But if you search it right now, you're I hope going to find Stacy, or you're going to find some really dated information sometimes. So if you're not making it part of the public zeitgeist, then there won't be funding for the research, the content. And by the way, we are meant to exit stage left after produce an offspring or don't. I think that's inherent in when we're like, why is no one talking about it? It's because we're definitely not meant to live that long after we're done being handmaids. So I think it would be silly not to mention that.
I agree with that.
It's not random. It's not
Wait a minute. I don't know if I agree with that. There's knowledge and there's proof out there that there have been cultures historically and even currently, although they're not Western cultures, so we don't know about that. But there are cultures that absolutely celebrate when a woman finishes her periods, right? Because she is now able to dedicate 100% of her time, energy, experience, and knowledge to promoting the tribe. And that can come in any number of ways. It can be knowledge about how to hunt and grow and to take care of kids, to educate, to confirm, ultimately, which is the purpose of civilization, that that particular tribe or group is going to go on. And they actually have crowning parties, and I think we should have crowning parties now. Why not? There should be reasons to have a party other than a divorce party when you're 50. Come on, seriously. I want to talk for a moment about education. One of the things that Samantha B. talked about in an interview which really struck me was the idea that, it's not the idea, it's a fact, only 17 states out of 50 in the United States have any sex education at all, and none of them talk about menopause. So what are we going to do about that? I don't know if that's going to be addressed in the next conversation, but I hope so. Anyway.
Yeah, sorry. If there's demand for menopause content, not only from consumers, but from advertisers, from pharma. I mean, pharma, we might be sometimes conflicted on this. You and I have talked about this, and whether we should be pushed to take things to eliminate, different experiences or symptoms, or thought of as, I think menopause is considered an illness or a condition or something. There's some negative positioning of menopause, but whether you choose to take pharmacology, pharmaceutical solutions or not, the fact that investment's going into a lot of treatments for menopause increases the research investment, increases the dialogue, spending money with advertising where you actually are targeting the word uterus as a non-negative phrase. So I think you get the education out there by looking at the for-profit world and recognizing that we spend a lot, we live for a long time, we're not just taking care of, or even if we are, great elders and kids. A lot of us leave the workplace in high numbers after 45. The rate of suicide goes up most prominently in that. This is all US, by the way. I don't know what's going on. I don't know outside the US. It's all New York. No, I'm just kidding. But there's all these data points that indicate that we could and should be buying more stuff. That's a way to get more dollars.
And I agree with that, but I also, wouldn't play devil's advocate, right? Obviously, any company that's for profit, and we, I think a lot of people in this room understand, are also dealing with snake oil, right? So when I say that when everybody is going to see, oh, look, I can make $1 off of this, fantastic. So I'm going to tell you something that won't work, because we know that this is a vulnerable population of people. This is why, and I sort of misspoke before, it's not that there's no place to get good information, but you really have to vet that information for yourself and make sure that it feels right to you and for you. And I think that anything that feels like it's being sold to you with an agenda, without real verifiable proof, really is why we need doctors who are going to become our health partners, who are going to be on this journey with us. It's why I get so excited when I hear about gynecologists in particular who do not deliver babies, right? And they're solely interested in sort of the midlife and beyond experience. This whole idea that we kind of cease to exist in every way, shape, or form is ludicrous. And pop culture-wise, I really do think Gen X is like coming in hot, right? I mean, because because I really do think we are actually hot. But like smoking, and none of us are like, oh yeah, I don't look so hot. We do, right? And this is the crazy thing. I think that Gen X is like, I am not stepping aside for millennials or Gen Z. I'm going to be with them. I'm going to grow with them. I want to be a part of this multi-generational mentorship. We're not going anywhere. And because of that, I think that it is really important that we become Sherpas, that we leave the breadcrumbs for people who come after us to figure out. And while we may not get to sex ed, menopause for 7-year-olds may never happen. But I do hope that we get to people in their 30s, right? If we're getting them in their 30s, then at least you have enough time to realize what you can do that is preventative healthcare, which, by the way, women are great at, and I'm sorry, gentlemen, you kind of suck at it. So this is really an ideal time and way. When we are talking about pregnancy and fertility, I think that menopause has to be part and parcel of that conversation.
It should be. The fact of the matter is menopause is an era of life that is a continuum of life. And I think that one of the things that we all forget, and I just have to remind everybody, when you turn 50, you got another 30, 40 years to go. That is a lot of time. It is actually the vast majority of your adult life. So anyway, what? Is it time?
I said I have 50.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. 50. And for actually, it's true. One of the largest, fastest growing cohorts in the country are women between 80 and 90. So think about that. And turning one of the fastest growing cohorts. It's not from an absolute number standpoint, it's from a percentage standpoint, but it's absolutely true. And it used to be, if you turned 100, the president would give you a call, and you'd get a card, maybe a little song on your phone. You know what? That doesn't even happen anymore because there are a lot of us turning into 100, so something to think about. I want to thank everybody again for coming. I want to thank all of our wonderful sponsors, including She Media, Become Clothing, and everybody around the room, Menowell, Her MD. Please take a look after the event. But in the meanwhile, what? Oh, name them all. Okay, I'm going to get in trouble if I don't name them all. Alloy, Barrel Smith, the fabulous cocktails, Become Clothing, and actually there's a little surprise courtesy of Stacy in your bag. There was a collaboration with Become, and that's really fun. Hot clothes for cool women, that's all I have to say. No, cool clothes for hot women, sorry, I got it wrong. Her MD, Metagenics, Perry, Hot Flash Tea, as well as Womaness. Thank you so much.
And I would just like to say, so many of those brands were in were absolutely, like, the guests were amazed by them. So just to say that these brands all have such potential to reach 1 billion people in 2025, let's get to it.
And I'm going to add on that one thing, which to your point, there is so much trash out there. We know that when you're vulnerable, whatever, I'll speak for my own insecure self, when you're trying to make yourself stronger, hotter, whatever, more productive, it's easy to sell us stuff. I love vetting from people like Stacy, who you totally trust, who are out there being, educating yourself. That kind of curation, whether it's content or products, is so valuable. So thank you for that.
Thank you. In fact, I know that I was told earlier that there were some questions from the audience for Stacy and for Samantha. Does anybody want to raise their hand and ask anything?
Oh, come on, don't be shy.
Come on, guys.
Really? First question.
You really want to ask about our upcoming tour?
Yes.
Some of the, yes.
Oh my God, is that a jumpsuit?
It is, and it's from Newly.
Love it.
Well, good evening, and thank you so much for this talk. My name is Valerie, and I am a women's health dietitian and a podcaster, and I'm here. I'm in my 30s. I just turned 30, and my mission is to kind of bridge the gap between 30-year-olds and 40s, 50s. I, in fact, just spoke to Dr. Javade just a couple days ago on the podcast. So I would love to ask you, just so I can communicate to my audience, what are one or two things that would be important to address for women in their 30s about menopause?
Strength training. The first thing I always say is, God, why didn't anybody tell me to start lifting really heavy weights when I was way younger? because bone health is one of those things that post-menopause it's not that it's too late, but like osteopenia is something that you can stave off, right? You can still keep yourself strong. Once you have osteoporosis, like I look at my mom who's in her 80s, she falls, she's done. It's that bad. So there are certain things that I think about, one, I think in terms of my physiological self, I wish that I'd known how to take better care of myself in terms of preventative care, which is, always starts with nutrition, exercise, and sleep. Those are the biggies. But then I wish that somebody had told me that, hey, that midlife crisis, that is that cultural trope, could be you struggling with hormonal fluctuation. Could be you not doubting yourself because there's anything wrong with you, that you are somehow invaluable, or you don't matter, or you're worthless, that it has to do with what is actually happening to you and inside of you. And that mood and mental health was a huge part of it for me. Anxiety, depression, rage, dread, and those are things that I really wish that I'd had a handle on, because I say this sort of as a joke. I used to say, like, I didn't want to walk across the Brooklyn Bridge because I was afraid I would throw myself off of it. It's in jest, but honestly, if you do not know that a Mack truck is coming in your direction, you're going to get hit by it. So I think managing your emotional life is very important, especially if you have previous mental health issues. They can come back real hard in menopause, during the menopause experience, and that, I had taken better care to understand aging, like what it means to actually take care of yourself in terms of preventative health before you get to 50 or before you get to 70, something like that.
Here's a fact that you can throw at your audience, which I only learned fairly recently and stunned me. Probably, and I'm sorry ladies, I'm just going to put it out there, the research shows that probably 70% of the women in this room have osteopenia right now. That's a fact. No?
Yeah.
What's time?
It was sad.
Oh, okay. No, it's really, if somebody had told me that at age 30, I'm with you. I'm not sure if I would have lifted heavy weights or not, but I certainly would have liked to have known that that would make a difference. That doing more planks, holding those planks, and doing them consistently would have made a difference. That doing just basic jumping jacks. Every time you do a jumping jack, you're actually creating bone. Who knew? So making these connections, as opposed to just reading an article that says exercise every day, 30 minutes, 4 times a week, blah, 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 blah. It's not enough. You need to have purpose as to why you're doing it.
All right. Hello. So we forgot hello. So hello is in the UK. They're one of our biggest sponsors here tonight. And they have come to the US. So I just wanted to make sure that we said that.
Yes, thank you, hello, for helping to make this evening happen.
We have hello. Another opportunity for another question.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Deborah. I just have a question. If you are unable to take hormonal therapy because of other health issues, what do you suggest?
Yeah, there's a bunch of doctors coming up here with lots of answers for you.
So you know what, that's a good question. Can you say that loud? You guys, there's some amazing
Doctors in the country that are extremely knowledgeable and have a great deal of passion for making this perimenopause to postmenopause life better. If your doctor is not helping you, can't answer, is even remotely dismissive, get in touch with the National Menopause Society, find a list, ask a friend for a better doctor, somebody who's trained and continues to train. Thank you. That's a really important point. On that note, one more question. Oh, one more. I'm sorry.
Do you want to just stand up? I'll stand up. I'm Sarah Cooper. I'm a sex therapist, and I'm so happy that you're talking about mental health because it's such an important aspect. But I want to ask you about relational health because the secret, the elephant in the room, right, is sexuality. Yes. And most women, when they reach perimenopause, menopause, they're like, I don't think about it, I don't want it, but
if they're in a relationship, the relationship is just as important as a woman's identity in terms of knowledge for herself, because her symptoms have an impact on a partner and or potential partner if she's out there dating. And by the way, so many women in midlife become single again. So if they don't have the sex ed that they need to talk about some of the things that they want, they don't even know what they want because they're depending on what happened to them in their 20s. So my question really is, what can the media do to sort of encourage women to consider themselves and their partners in a new type of partnership that involves sexuality?
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Germain obviously can speak to this very well in her MD, but I would just say one of the things that I talk a lot about is not just normalizing this conversation, but optimizing this conversation and democratizing this conversation so that it is not solely just for women, right? That we are talking about gender expansive folks and men, our partners, whether they're, our love partners or romantic partners, our families, even our work colleagues. And we certainly have to figure out a way to work with employers so that we are not, saying this number, like 4 out of 10 women think about leaving their job during the menopause experience, 1 out of 10 actually does, are stats that can hurt us. So how do we get employers to understand that this is coverage that we need? This is not like you throw us away. We have incredible knowledge, we have incredible expertise. So when you talk about that network, I think it is more than just romantic, right? We certainly want to give people the language to talk about the evolution of intimacy and how sex changes over time. But I think it's even more than that. We need to enlist everybody as a team player in this experience for everybody to understand it better and for everybody to get through it together.
I think that I would say content and media could do a lot more in terms of advancing the experience of relationship as a component of sexual health, as a component of preventative health, and so on. And again, our friends who are actual professionals up here can probably talk about the degree to which investing in your sexuality, as you guys know, as you clearly know, you guys should talk, is critical to brain health, to pelvic health, to all these things that I did not know. So I think we in the media could be far better at not compartmentalizing, are you getting an orgasm versus are you experiencing intimacy versus girlfriends, boyfriends, work friends, and I agree completely that investing in the vulnerability around sort of getting to know yourself and allowing experimentation, etc. I don't know how to do that. I'm a wasp. We don't do that.
Yeah. One other
We
thing.
just drink. It's gross.
Drink. But I do want to say one thing that's actually really, really important about that is that of the people who were at the immersion, right, we had a lot of very kind of personal conversations. One of the things that almost all of them thanked me for was that I put a vibrator in their room.
And on that note,
We're going to go be waspy and drink.
that is the answer to everything. Get a vibrator. No, seriously. I'm very excited to introduce our second panel that's going to be led by Donna Klassen, one of 2 co-founders of Let's Talk Menopause, alongside Samara Daly. I don't know where Samara is, but say hello. And we have 4 extraordinarily communicative, smart, community-building doctors, OBGYNs, to talk with you about advocacy, which is actually an incredible component of culture. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much for being here and coming to this amazing event, and thank you to everyone who organized it and all of the sponsors. Thank you to that previous panel, that was fantastic. My name is Donna Klassen. I am the co-founder and CEO of Let's Talk Menopause, a national nonprofit changing the conversation about menopause, so women get the information they need. I'm proud to be here to initiate this important conversation about menopause and advocacy and what we have now termed the menopause movement in the United States. Let's Talk Menopause and the National Menopause Foundation, 2 nonprofit organizations, collaborated to form a menopause advocacy task force, uniting medical experts, like people in the room here, along with advocates and influencers, Tamsin and other people, Stacy, many of whom who have passionately championed this cause for years. I have to say that it's an honor to be here in this room and to play a part in this organizing effort. Our collective effort focuses on achieving long-term change that will make a difference in women's lives, with our first focus being the Menopause Research and Equity Act of 2023. But this is just the start. Today you will hear about other important education and advocacy efforts, including removing barriers to care so that women can be their best selves in menopause and beyond. I'm thrilled to introduce our dynamic panel of experts and advocates. These are just a couple of the faces, just some of the faces and minds that are pioneering change. I'd also like to acknowledge Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, who could not be with us today, but she's here with us in spirit and in her commitment. And now I'm going to briefly introduce the four panelists. Dr. Sharon Malone is a prominent OBGYN, advocate, and chief medical advisor for Alloy, a telehealth company committed to menopause treatment and education. Dr. Malone, many of you who know Dr. Malone know that she's on a mission to increase menopause care and access. She's been at the forefront of advocacy work for federal changes around equity, hormone therapy, and research. So do you all know that only 10% of urologists are women? Well, Kelly Casperson is one of those women. She not only cares for her patients, she hosts a popular podcast on female sexuality. She's an author, a pioneer of adult sex ed, and more. She's committed to empowering women to take control of their health. Dr. Ruth Joseph wears many hats. She's a practicing psychiatrist, a professor at NYU, the chair of Women in Medicine at Columbia University. She's an author, a podcast host, menopause influencer, just to name a few. She's also leading a research team on menopause and mental health. Dr. Somi Javed is an OBGYN, a leading women's sexual health thought leader, and a menopause advocate. She is the founder and lead chief medical officer at Her MD, a team on a mission to educate, advocate for, and empower patients to take control of their health through comprehensive and accessible women's health care. So let's dive in. So we're going to start with Dr. Malone. You kickstarted this bill last year with the op-ed in the Washington Post, co-authored by Let's Talk Menopause board member Jen Weisgold, calling for more funding for research. Can you give us a brief overview? And it might be hard to do that, not because it's hard for you, just because of what's happened. But how did we get here? How are where we are with hormone therapy, with women's menopause care, and
Thank you, Donna. How we got here is a pretty straightforward path. We got here because women are afraid to use hormone replacement therapy because we're afraid that hormones are going to give them cancer, Alzheimer's, strokes, you name it. Well, how did you get afraid? Well, you didn't make it up. There was a study that was done, and it was reported out in 2002, the Women's Health Initiative. Now, the purpose of this study was actually, it had fairly laudable goals. They were trying to decide whether or not that hormone replacement therapy would decrease the risk of cardiovascular disease in women. That was its primary goal. We didn't need a study to find out whether or not hormone therapy was effective for the treatment of menopause. Hormones have been around for 80 years, and at the time of the study, they'd been around for 50 years. So a lot of the things that we thought hormones did, well, we knew that. We gave them these great hormones to younger women. They felt better. We learned some things along the way in those 50 years. But the biggest observation we had in those 50 years is that women who took hormones had half the risk of cardiovascular disease than men. So NIH had a great idea. Let's prove it. Let's do the largest randomized study in the history of NIH on women.
And prior to 1993, women were not even included in studies funded by the NIH. Imagine that. And I think it might have a little bit to do with the fact that the first female director of the NIH, Bernadette Healy, was the one who kickstarted women's health initiative, and we have to at least give her credit. Well, what started out laudably, just to prove that hormones decrease the risk of heart disease, imagine the impact that it had. Heart disease kills 10 times more women per year than breast cancer. So that was how we started. The study was supposed to last for 8 years. We were going to watch, prove that what we had observed was true, and then we were going to be able to use hormone replacement therapy effectively for women. Well, a funny thing happened on the way proving that it worked. The study, by its design, was trying to prove a decrease in heart disease. Well, if you give it to 50-year-old women, it would take you too long to figure out whether or not they could decrease the risk of heart disease, because a 50-year-old isn't going to get her heart disease until she's 60, 65, 70. So they purposely designed the study to include older women. So the average age of women entering that study was 63. You could be in the study anywhere from the age of 50 to the age of 79. And the average age of the study participants was 63, and they were more than 12 years from the time of their natural menopause. And this study population did not approximate how hormones had been used in the past. So that was mistake number one. Well, surprisingly, when they checked in on this study population at the 5-year mark, they didn't see the decrease in heart disease that they were expecting because, well, these women already had heart disease. So it's kind of hard to prove a prevention study when you've already got women who've got the disease that you're trying to present. I'm sorry, as you said quickly. I already know.
It's a hard thing to do quickly.
It is hard thing. But I think it's important because if you understand why we got the results that we got, it wasn't because they were wrong. It was just that those results were overgeneralized to the population at large. And they also put in, just by the way, a little safety protocol which said they will have a safety stop for breast cancer. And it was actually that safety stop for breast cancer, if it exceeded a certain amount, it stopped the study. That's what stopped the study. And so when they came out and announced the results, they had a press conference. What medical study has anyone had a press conference at the National Press Club to announce the results? None. But they were so intent on making sure that women knew it doesn't help your heart. Oh, and by the way, it's going to increase your risk of breast cancer, and in the dramatic fashion by which they stopped the study. That is really why this notion that hormones is harmful and hormones is going to cause breast cancer really came about. That study was reported out in 2001. So for the past 21 years, we have been trying to backtrack and take that information back because what we thought was true, that it decreases the risk of heart disease, probably is true if you give it to women at the right time. And that even the breast cancer risk was tremendously overblown and also not applicable to women who took it around the time. So for those of us who are old enough to have practiced before the Women's Health Initiative, during and after, you can imagine we've gone around the world and back again. And now researchers are finally finding out that, oh, well, you know what? It doesn't really do what we said it did. But that notion has stuck in women's heads for a generation. So a generation of women has been disadvantaged and not availed themselves of hormone replacement therapy, and they have suffered needlessly. So, but there's another effect that I think is even more pernicious, and that is when those results came out, it basically halted research on hormone therapy around the world, not just in the United States. There were studies in process, they stopped. The amount of money that's gone into research for women in menopause and midlife care has ground to a halt. And that is why we are here, because we are trying to get NIH to be accountable for what they have done, and to also make sure that we re-examine that information, examine the areas where they are lacking, and come up with a comprehensive plan for how are we going to address women's health in midlife.
Absolutely. You might ask a question about the bill. So the Menopause Research Act, you'll find out more about it later this month, but it is for more research through the NIH. If you wanted to add anything else about the bill?
I was going to say that's the pottery barn rule. You broke it, you fix it. So the bill is also going to look at a couple of things, and I think this is important, and it's the equity piece of it. Women make up 51% of the population. The NIH budget, the last budget that we have numbers on, the $45 billion in funding that they give for studies, less than 10% of that budget goes to fund studies that specifically affect the health of women. Now, where's the equity in that? And when you drill down further and you're trying to say, well, how much of that, okay, only 10% went to women, women's health in general, how much of that went to menopause? And we don't know. We have no idea. And the reason why we don't know is because they don't track menopause as a separate entity that they can even tell you how much that we've spent. And that is also one of the things that we're asking for NIH director to account for. How are you going to tell us what's been spent, and what is your plan, and an interdisciplinary plan? Because menopause is not just about women's reproductive organs. Menopause and all of the health issues that happen in midlife are global. It affects women's lives. A third of women's lives will be spent in menopause and beyond. And the fact that we don't know in 2023 what are the effective treatments, why have we not gotten the answers about hormone replacement therapy, why are we still asking the same questions that we were asking in 1993 in 2023 is to me unconscionable. And this act is a start. It is a start. But I think the one thing that I want to get across to everyone today is that we can only do so much as physicians. To get this really moving, it's going to require a groundswell of grassroots support from women. You've got to get angry. You've got to say, you've got to make your government accountable to you about how we spend our tax dollars. And let's be clear, we can't count on big pharma or industry to do it. There's no financial incentive for any drug company to do any research on hormone replacement. It's generic, it's cheap, there's no profit margin in that. And that is why we are we ask that the government has to do this, because they can't afford not to do it. We are a huge cohort that is about to enter, not only menopause, but the fourth quarter. And it matters because who's going to pay for our health care? And if you have something cheap and effective, why would you not use that as opposed to something that's not as effective and way more expensive? So it's in our interest as taxpayers, it's in our interest as women, it's in our interest for our daughters, for our nieces, for everyone out there in the next generation to get answers to this question. And no one's going to do it more effectively than government.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So there's a QR code around the corner there and on different places so that people can sign up for advocacy updates, and we'll keep you informed. We're going to have something on our website where people can write to their members of Congress, put their address and write to members of Congress. So be sure to sign up on our website and our QR code. So now we're going to turn to Dr. Casperson, and we're going to talk about sexual health and urinary issues that we are now taking. And I love what Stacy said before, that we are not going to just take this, that Gen X is going to blow this out of the water. And Dr. Casperson is one of those people. So can you explain to us, there's a new term that was coined in the mid, 2015, 2016 by the National Menopause Society. And it's called the genitourinary syndrome of menopause. Can you explain what that is?
Thank you, everybody, for being here. It was actually coined by a urologist who was the only urologist sitting at the table when they thought they should rebrand vaginal atrophy. And if you thought vaginal atrophy was bad, you can go way back to the 80s. I was doing research looking at the use it or lose it myth for a podcast episode. And before vaginal atrophy, they called it senile vagina. So we've made some progress. But what general urinary syndrome of menopause does is it incorporates all of the pelvic structures and explains why it's happening. Right? So atrophy is kind of a shamey sort of word, and why is this happening? And so it really explains it a lot more. GSM for short, because it is a mouthful. Because so many people, because of the lack of education and knowledge around menopause, they think menopause is a hot flash. When your hot flash is done, there's no more menopause. I see that every single day when I'm in clinic. And they come to me as a urologist, urinary frequency, urgency, recurrent UTI, of which people die from. Pain with sex, I stopped having sex, it hurts, it's not fun. Then they come in with low desire, but of course, because your pelvis hurts, right? And really the education starts with, this is menopause, and this is part of it. It can happen in perimenopause, you don't have to be done with your periods. And it gets worse the longer you go without the estrogen, so progressive getting worse. I see people all the time, they're like, menopause was so far ago, and like, but this is a result of low estrogen. The other big myth about GSM I see all the time when I talk to women about moisturizers, lubricants, or vaginal estrogen is they come and they tell me, but my husband X, Y, and Z, or I don't have a partner. And I say, why is taking care of your vagina about a partner? It is about you, your health, your bladder health. Great if you have a partner or not, but this is not just for sexuality. The other thing about me is I'm a urologist, I take care of men, we do Viagra and testosterone like candy because we care about their quality of life. And I thought for the longest time the gynecologists were taking care of the people who were sleeping with the people I was giving Viagra to.
That did not happen.
I ran into a gynecologist I went to medical school with at an Ishwish conference a couple of years ago. Like, you know the 10 a.m. coffee break right at conferences, and she's in mine, and I'm like, what are you doing here? Like, you already know all this stuff. And she's like, no, I don't. We didn't get taught this. Gynecologists are incredibly busy taking care of 51% of the population. This can't all be on them. But so to me, that's my work. And if we're giving out Viagra, we have to talk about the people who are at home with the people with Viagra. 90% of men are heterosexual. We have to take care of their partners. So it's equality, advocacy, and learning about menopause.
Can you explain, thank you, can you explain a little bit, this is a little bit off the advocacy, but what is the difference between systemic and local vaginal estrogen?
Yeah, good question. I get this all the time. So local or vaginal estrogen, I call it local or pelvic estrogen on Instagram because I get blocked every time I try to say vagina or vulva, media issues, right? So I call it local or pelvic. It's very low dose. It does not get into your body. It's over the counter in multiple countries. It is not over the counter in our country. And so many people, they say, well, will this help with my hot flashes? Will this help with all? And no, this is just for your pelvis. Oftentimes, people who are on systemic hormones still need to be on the pelvic estrogen because it's just not enough. I say the pelvis is like the last stop on the train. And so like the estrogen's going to brain, bones, heart, all the things. There's not enough left for the last stop on the train. So I have a lot of people who are on the boat. Was that helpful?
Very helpful. What are some of the barriers to women accessing local vaginal estrogen?
Doctors being educated, women not knowing that this is menopause and it's a result of low estrogen, and the treatment is just replacing what you had. See, it's very safe, it's the exact same stuff. And the damn FDA label.
Yeah, that label.
It says probable dementia on probable dementia on it. Also says heart attack, stroke, cancer. So I'm pretty good. My spiel with my patients is If you are a legal reader, you're going to read that this is going to try to kill you, and now you have the difficult job of choosing between what your doctor said and the FDA. And I'm sorry I put you in that role. But it's good to know, because if you read probable dementia, you don't want to use that product. It's all wrong. Part of what we're doing with advocacy is petitioning the FDA to relook at that overall class labeling system that they've done and pull it off of products that don't carry that risk.
We're going to go. Great. Dr. Joseph, can you tell us a little bit about the connection between perimenopause and mood?
One of my roles, many roles, is as chair of women in medicine at Columbia. I work with women graduates who have graduated across several decades. And these are people who are leading departments across the United States. And I'm also working with the current medical students. So it's a great opportunity to educate these future leaders and these current leaders about misinformation, about proper education, about evidence-based care. And so because I work with students, I use acronyms because medical students use acronyms for everything. And so I use the term ties. So there are ties between menopause and mental health. It doesn't mean that menopause is a mental health issue. We don't want to further stigmatize it, but there are ties between the two. So the T for ties is thoughts. So with thinking and thoughts being distorted, you may have things such as word finding issues. So some of my clients will say, the word was just on the tip of my tongue and I just forgot it. Or they may say things like, I'm losing things, I can't find my keys, I can't, and they're late to things. And then they may also say that they have executive functioning issues. So, these are things that are within the cognition, the thoughts, the teach of the ties. And as a psychiatrist, we use organizational skills building. So these are things that you typically use in things like ADHD or some forms of learning disabilities, but you can use these same skills to support women going through these cognitive thinking issues. So the I in ties is identity. How many times have we seen our clients come in and say, I don't know who I am anymore? And a lot of the identity issues are rooted in functioning. If you can't do your job as well, a lot of people tie their professions to who they are, then they feel like they're losing themselves. Or if you're an athlete and you feel like you can't do certain things anymore physically, you feel deflated. So a lot of my work with these clients is building up their identity, who you are before these things happen, and also challenging these negative automatic thoughts. Because cognitive behavioral therapy, it's not a medication intervention, but it is a very evidence-based type of treatment where women learn to challenge negative thoughts. And when you challenge these thoughts, your feelings change. You feel as if you can do things. So you gain back your identity. And the E in ties is emotions. So there is a lot of data that shows that women will have some of their first episodes of depression in midlife. But some of these women have had previous depressions, or they have a past history of a family depression, or they have other risk factors. And others will experience perimenopausal mood symptoms. And this is where we need a lot of research. So we want to help these women and feel supported with evidence-based treatments, but the data out there, the recent data shows that hormone therapy can help with that. And also things that are non-hormonal, non-medication, such as cognitive behavioral therapy, yoga, other Eastern medications can help these women and support them. And then the last, the S, sleep. Sleep kind of ties it all together, no pun intended. So sleep architecture changes as you age. So both women and men have sleep disturbances as they get older. However, the research shows that in the perimenopausal period, the hormone fluctuations can impact the way that your sleep architecture is built. So you may not have the deep sleep. Or you could have perfectly fine sleep, but your perception of sleep is distorted. So there are things like CBTI, hormone therapy, there are medications that can help support the sleep. But the bottom line is that we want to educate young doctors that are practicing across the nation, across the world, about things that they can be doing with their clients, their current patients, and they can go back to school with some of our events. We have an event next week at Columbia for the women in medicine. We want to make sure that these doctors have the appropriate training, that they're providing the appropriate care for their patients.
But just a brief comment. We talk about doctors not being trained, besides the doctors that are up here and many of them in this room and at different places. But the mental health, I'm a therapist, a social worker, in addition to running Let's Talk Menopause. And the mental health profession knows nothing about menopause as well. And we do know that it's the third window of vulnerability: pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause. And just a little note on sleep. We have a billboard coming up and a billboard out in Times Square in Minneapolis that says "We deserve better sleep." So check out our website because we have a new sleep section. But we do also know that hot flashes and night sweat are often paired with difficult sleeping, right? So there's a connection there. And sleep is also super important for mood and then for other health issues. So it's not just this thing like, where I just can't sleep. Okay, I'm just gonna top it out. We need sleep. Okay. Tell us a little bit about your research. What are you doing in the lab?
So I started doing research in postpartum depression because a lot of my clients weren't getting the support they needed. And I found that there were ties between some of the women that I had treated who were later in their pregnancies, later in life in their pregnancies, coming back right after in perimenopause and having some of these same symptoms. And so I shifted my gears towards menopause because hormone fluctuations impact women throughout their lifespans. I treat children as well. I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist. So I see it in the premenstrual disorder, then I see it when women are going through postpartum, and then I see it later in life. And some of the research that I work with is in neurohormones, and I won't go into it in detail, but there are different medications depending on what's causing the depression. I love acronyms and these type of word plays. So another one that I use with my students is the 3 Ps. How can you tell if a woman is going through a major depressive disorder versus a perimenopausal mood symptom? Well, you don't have hot flushes with major depressive disorder. You don't have the physical changes, so that's the first P. If you've had a history of past depression, if your family has had a history of depression, you're more likely to be going through a major depressive disorder in midlife. That's the second P. And the last one is period changes. To date, we haven't seen literature in the DSM-5 about your period changing causing major depressive disorder. So if you have period changes in midlife, you're more likely to be going through a perimenopausal mood symptom period versus major depression. So we want to make sure that we don't destigmatize mental health, that we provide treatments for major depressive disorder when it's warranted, but we don't want to confuse it with perimenopausal mood changes because they're very different and the interventions are different for both.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to... There's so much to say about all of these subjects. We could just keep going and diving, but we're going to move on.
Dr. Gervais,
you're prioritizing mass access to effective menopause care. Can you explain a little bit about what you're doing?
Yes, I can. I nearly lost my mother at a very young age because of our very broken healthcare system. So I was pre-med at the time and decided I was going to change the world. Fast forward, got my first job, was trying to see 50 patients a day. Didn't have time to go to the bathroom or eat, let alone be an advocate. And so when the time was right, after listening to patients and what they needed, evidence-based care, time with their provider, no 7-minute appointments, data, choice, a beautiful space that was comfortable, I decided to open my first location in Cincinnati, Ohio, thinking that would be it. And then when I saw women from 35 states and 3 countries coming to Cincinnati, decided to, the most beautiful place in the United States. No, all joking aside, I realized that there was a true need for evidence-based, peer-reviewed, insurance-based coverage for women, and we spent 40% of our lives in menopause, and we were being ignored. And so Her MD is a place where we specialize in advanced gynecology, menopause, sexual health care. You get up to 60-minute appointments. We take insurance. We're doing our own clinical research. We presented 2 posters just last week at the Menopause Society. Yes, so I'm not government, but we are doing something. And the difference at HerMD is that we are educating our providers. And so the statistic that 93% of medical residents graduate with being uncomfortable to take care of menopause was crazy to me. So we created something called HerMD University, which is an evidence-based, data-driven solution. So 100% of our providers are trained, which we're very proud of. So you will never come and experience those delays in diagnosis. The barriers to care in this country are crazy. You know, women wait longer for pain medications. We wait on average 4 years longer for a diagnosis than our male counterparts. And even though women outnumber men in the workforce, in healthcare, we don't outnumber them in those decision-making seats. And so we talked about lack of funding, we talked about lack of data, and it's not just lack of funding for research, it's lack of funding for founders like me. Minority woman from the Midwest, they were like, good luck, this is never going to work. No one's going to come to your center. What are you thinking? Menopause and sexual health care. To date, we've been successfully been able to fundraise almost $30 million. We have 5 locations around the country, and with a few more being built. I'm not going to stop until we have about 200. My goal is to make menopause and sexual health care accessible. The other goal is to curate the menopause experience. I love hormone therapy. I am with Sharon. We have so misled women with data, lack of education, and the other thing that happened is we scared providers. So many of my colleagues stopped prescribing. They stopped learning. They stopped going to conferences. That is irresponsible. And so the goal truly is to create a biopsychosocial approach, a curated response for women. And what does that mean? You want hormones? Great. You don't want hormones? Guess what? There's 2 other FDA-approved medications for hot flashes. Someone asked that question earlier, like, what do I want? Well, it depends on which of the 34 symptoms of menopause you're experiencing. Is it low libido? There's 2 FDA-approved medications for that. Is it GSM? There are localized pelvic hormones. There are radiofrequency microneedling treatments. We just presented our data at Menopause Society for that and got 95% success with GSM, 90% with incontinence. Yes, the same radiofrequency you use on your face. No, it is not FDA cleared for that yet. And it's not covered by your insurance, but you know what's going to change that paradigm? Data. And so that is the goal. There are great over-the-counter curated products. So it just really depends. We rely on our sexual health counselors, our pelvic floor physical therapists. You have to look at the whole health picture. It is not a one-size-fits-all solution for everybody. And so that is what I'm doing at HerMD, is amplifying this voice and making this care accessible.
So I was going to ask another question, but I actually think it's better to have audience questions. Why don't we start with that?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I'm a journalist with Yahoo. I wrote my first article on menopause recently when I started going through menopause. And I asked my doctor, can I have some hormones? And she said, we didn't do that here. And so it led me on a bit of a journey to figure that out for myself. But what I found when I was writing this article is how few gynecologists are educated when it comes to menopause, which I know you touched on. Is the solution HerMD in the future for women? Is there a movement to educate the next generation of gynecologists? I'm curious.
Well, let me say one thing. That your experience is not singular. We hear again and again and again and again. Or still, your doctor will prescribe hormones, you go see your internist and they go, oh, you need to get off that. So there is a lot of crosstalk and misunderstanding in the medical profession. Now, here's the reality. In an ideal world, should everyone get a personalized treatment plan, someone talking to you, that would be great. That is not the experience that most women have. we have a shortage of OBGYNs in this country. We don't have enough in the pipeline to fill the number of women who are retiring. And this is the reality. OBGYN now is 85% women. And the reality of having a field that's 85% women is that we do not practice as long. So we are exacerbating that bottleneck. So yeah, there are more women, and that's great. We're not going to practice as long. And, retirement is early. So we've got a real shortage. So the question is, how are we going to make treatment accessible? And it would be different. If you have her MD, you can go there, God bless you. I think that is the ideal. But for the 10 million women in this country who don't have access to an OBGYN, the 50% of the counties in the United States that don't have a practicing OBGYN or hospital or anything to go to, how are we going to act? How are we going to get care of those women? And I think that we have sort of suffered from a lack of imagination. And I'd say with doctors, we're not good at that. So, we're good at certain things and not at others. And we have got to be able to leverage the expertise of one doctor, 10 doctors, over hundreds and thousands of patients. Because as great a job as I think I did, I can only see 20 patients a day effectively. This is why we've got to use online platforms. And I'm the medical advisor for Alloy Women's Health. And what we have tried to do is to not replace that. If you've got great health care, yay, go. We're trying to get access to the women who can't get it or have a provider who won't prescribe. That is why we are there. And we are also trying to do the same thing with evidence-based medications. We provide hormone therapy for women who want it. We provide the education for you so you can decide for yourself. One of the things that I think is really important is to provide, we want women to have agency. Take hormones, don't take hormones. That isn't my decision. That's your decision based upon what your treatment goals are and what your particular risk, benefit, profile, and where you want that to live. I think every woman gets to make that decision for herself. Now, how we get that care to you is going to require a lot of different things. It will be telehealth. And unfortunately, or fortunately, let's just say one of the good things about COVID, and there's one, is that it got people comfortable with the notion of accessing health care in a non-in-person environment. And guess what? People like it. You know what? I mean, I don't have to take a half day off to go see my doctor and pay for parking. And it works. And there's actually a study that was done by the Mayo Clinic that said that, patients are satisfied and that the concordance, which means that the diagnosis made in a telehealth environment and the diagnosis made in an in-person visit are agreed more than 85% of the time. That's pretty darn good as opposed to nothing. So we have got to use everything that we can. And I have to say, God bless Kelly and Rachel Rubin and all these young women who are out there raising the consciousness on the internet and where people can say, oh, I didn't know that. It will force you or at least spur you to go out there and find information for yourself. So yes, we can do a lot of things all at once. And we have excellent in-person care, great. Telehealth for those that don't have access. When we talk about the Menopause Society, the number of doctors in this country, there are only about 23,000 OBGYNs in the country. And of those 23,000, less than 1,500 of them are certified menopause practitioners, which means that if you go to the website and look for one, well, you might find one, but you may have to fly to Cincinnati.
Wait a second, though, Sharon, we are telehealth too, so
yes.
But we do rely on our partners, and you're so right. And then there's also digital therapeutics. So Dr. Lindsay Harper with the Rosie app and sexual health. There's a auditory erotica app called Dipsy, and so it's this multimodal agency. It's your choice. You have choice.
And that's what we've got to do. We've got to diversify the avenues that by which women can access care.
So Dr. Malone, you sort of read my mind in talking about the access to telemedicine, but I'm wondering, obviously the goal is to get care to a broader population of women. I was curious what the panel thinks about some of these practices that aren't even telehealth, and what is the responsible relationship between a practitioner and a patient in terms of getting care to them and HRT, because there are some practices where you're not even having a telehealth appointment and HRT is being prescribed, and how do you all feel about that?
And I'll answer this because that is how Alloy works. It's not a video appointment. Because the reality is that a video telehealth appointment does not increase the capacity of that doctor to see patients. Because I still can only, it's more convenient for the patients to be sure, but I'm still limited by how many patients I can see in the course of a day. We are doing for women what
You can go online and get Viagra. Okay. There are a lot of things that you can go online and get, because bear in mind, we are.
You can go online and get Viagra.
You can go online and get Viagra. You can go online and get birth control pills. They are there for a specific reason. They're not to be your primary care doctor. So let's be clear about that. But this is for women who cannot get them other places. And that's why we do that. We have two more questions.
So my question is really about, we know obviously that menopause and how the healthcare system in the United States, it's difficult, and all of you have talked about this. Are there other countries, that are best in class or doing it better than we are? And what can we learn from them, and what can I do, or what can we do as women to actually maybe mirror or emulate those countries? And as doctors, as physicians, what can you do, and are you talking to your colleagues in those other countries in terms of what they've done?
I just got to spend a brilliant weekend with founders from all over the world in this femtech space, and I hate to say this, but we are way behind the game. Yes, we all saw the statistics that 900,000 women left the workforce in the UK, but they are working on employment programs. You know how we have wonderful lactation rooms in the United States? Why don't we have menopause rooms? Why don't we have closer bathrooms for GSM? I have so many people that say they're triggered when they're at work because they have word finding during a presentation, or they're worried about the temperature. And so they have employer programs. They are working on menopause rooms. They are more effective with what's going on with government. And I'd say that the UK and Spain are definitely ahead of us. But what we can do is continue to have international societies, founder meetings. We can learn from each other. We can parallel off of the work that Sharon Malone is doing with the government here. And so if we share data and we elevate each other, it will take all of our collective voices globally to make a change for the 1.1 billion individuals that will be in menopause by 2025.
1.1 billion.
I just want to say, as Let's Talk Menopause, we reach out to the nonprofits there and the organizations there. They're definitely ahead of us, both in the UK and Australia. And their systems are different, but we have certainly learned from them and are taking it the next step with that.
So we have time for this last question, and you're going to have many more questions, but you know what? We need to take some pictures, and then you can ask them. Okay.
We actually invite you to approach the different amazing and incredibly intelligent doctors. Take this opportunity. They're here. And we'd love to share with you what they know.
Hi. As founder of something called the Midlife Truth Project, I interview women about all aspects of midlife, about evolving friendships, changing family dynamics, about aging parents, financial security, then this bigger question of what's next, right? And there's no doubt through all of these interviews that I've had with women that what is happening to their bodies, physically, emotionally, spiritually, is affected by perimenopause and menopause, right? And so it's affecting women, not only what's happening with them, but it's affecting how they mother, their relationships, how they're performing at work. Like, it's a 360 story, right? And yet, so many of the women I speak to don't realize that it's hormonal. They don't understand. They can be 4 years postmenopausal, and they say, well, I'm over it, right? So, like, it can't be hormones. It's just me. You know, I just don't like my husband anymore. Or, you know, or I'm not smart enough to have this job. Or I'm just too tired, I'm not cut out for it. They don't realize the connection. So I wonder from a policy perspective, right, because a lot of these women are either going to their general practitioners, they're going to their life coaches, they're going to their, couples therapists, and these people aren't bringing up what's the role of hormones, what is it potentially? So my question is, what can we do from a policy perspective to help educate the practitioners, the therapists, the doctors, the mental health professionals? What's going on behind the scenes there?
Okay, Donna, it's up to you who responds.
Very good question, and you're absolutely right. People are missing the connections and not understanding what's happening with their bodies and what's happening in this transition, and that it actually can be, you can come out of it really great and feeling really great. And I want to say that, like, we have the quick answer for that. I think that, we're starting with research, we're starting with more money, so we get the research. We are going online, we're talking to people, we're advocating, we're pushing. The reason why it's no longer in the curriculum actually happened in the medical curriculum for med schools is because right after the 2002 study, they had to cut the curriculum because med students were working too hard, they were overworking them. So they just decided that menopause was going to be cut, and it hasn't been put back. Right? So I don't know exactly how we're going to do it, I guess that's what I want to say, but we're going to do it. We're starting with, this is sort of like, we are a new movement, right? We were talking for many years, right? The people in the room here, we've been talking for a while, and now we're making movement and progression. And so whether that means that, there has to be legislation around that, we will do that. But I think the first step is really, we need to get the research going, because I was also at the conference, and I've been at many of the NAMS conferences, and constantly, we don't know that. We don't know that hasn't been researched about everything. We don't know the answer to that. We don't know. Okay? So we're starting there, and then we're moving on. And I think that, social media is a great way to get some information out there to people, because actually the way that doctors are going to get more information if their patients come to them wanting answers and information. So if we all ask our doctors and say, wait a second, like, are you menopause trained? Are you informed? Okay, I want to have a conversation with a doctor about a risk-benefit about hormone therapy. Because one of the things I think that was mentioned here is about this shared decision-making. And I think that's really important. And I think a lot of doctors are moving to this sort of idea of sort of like, that it's up to you to make a decision about your health. And so you have to be as informed, and then push the doctors also to get informed and to learn more. So I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but it is going to happen. I'm fully confident. FDA black box warning, what's next? So we're going to keep doing it.
What I've learned from the sex med world and what I do with the podcast is, like, research does exist in a silo. We've had great evidence-based data on female sexuality for decades. Nobody knows a darn thing about it because researchers are introverts and they don't know how to share their data, right? So it really takes podcasters, influencers to be like, do you know what we know about female sexuality? Right, and then that's also where the menopause comes in. I truly think this is grassroots. It's women supporting women. I think so many women are so afraid of doing it right. I see this all the time. Am I doing it right? But what's the best? Instead of this culture change of like, this is individualized, this is your time, and what's good for her is not going to work for you. And it's really supporting each other to be like, stop shoulding on everybody's, is it natural or is it not natural? We shame ourselves all the time for doing it right and natural enough. And natural is a target that's always moving, and it's made up by marketers anyways. So,
and you deserve to feel good, and that's the thing, right? Like, so when you're making a decision, whether it's hormone therapy or not, you deserve to feel good, and that's, I think, really important.
And also a lot of women feel shame, and my clients who come to me and they're like, I don't know who I am anymore, I feel like I have no control. One of the things I encourage is that talk about it. Start these groups. You know, there's so much strength in numbers, and this is where you're going to be able to empower others. You can talk to the women in your family, younger women, older women, learn from the people who went through this already, find out what they use to cope. But when you talk about it, you have less internalized shame. And one of the things that I study is trauma, and people don't realize that a history of trauma leads you to have worsened symptoms. And so learning about your history and how that can impact you can go a long way, because you have to educate your doctors about your history. So many times women come to the doctor and they don't know what meds they're on, why they're taking it, or they don't know their family history. So you have to learn all these things to help your doctor too.
I want to thank everyone. I want to thank Celeste and Lori and everyone who organized this, and thank everyone for coming, and thank our panelists.
All right, so let's all get real here, right? So the reason that this is our second annual Mrs. Menopause event is because Wonder King came to us and said, don't you want to do this again? We're like, what? And then Let's Talk Menopause was like, don't you want to do this again? And we're like, oh, okay. So we have a fabulous space. We've had an amazing time together. We're sharing, we're learning. And I have to say, I have not done the groundwork. Celeste was the brainchild for all of this. I'm standing up here, but I appreciate, this is why you have a co-founder, okay? This is why you have a best friend, you know? So we do it together, and we are, you know, every email we send is to donate to Let's Talk Menopause, okay? We are here to support. We ask our friends to buy tickets. Our ticket price is the lowest of all these other events. But it's purposeful, because when we came up, not me actually, Celeste came up with the name Caire with an I. It's for the individual in her. We embrace people. We're not just about skincare. We're about embracing women, uplifting women, caring for women. And it's a part of who we are. So I'm so appreciative for all of you to be here. We all are appreciative of you being here. And Donna and Samara, because I've been calling her Samara, we're so appreciative of you to partner with us and to help us elevate the message, and our sponsors to partner with us to help to bring what women truly want, the message. And we're very thankful. So thank you, everyone. The bar is still open. We run a tight ship here. It's called, let's have a panel, let's drink, let's shop, let's learn.